Okay, that's fine. That's like ending half of the day. Alrighty. Let's see. Is the stream going? I did hit auto start, so it should have just started. But I don't know. Oh, here we go. It's showing signs. I think we're a go. I'm gonna double check. Actually, I'll check on my phone. Quickly checking to see if I'm streaming. Sorry, that's other content. Yep. Okay. Cool. So, hey guys, this is a very impromptu stream. I'm not gonna, I'm not gonna really give too much context of what I'm doing, but I'm making a video essay. It's based on Elden Ring. Well, I'm working on a series of video essays, but one of them is based on Elden Ring. And part of the video is needing me to go through. I went through already through Joseph Anderson's video on Elden Ring. Now it's Never Knows Best video on Elden Ring. Excuse me. And I'm just kind of going through it. I'm taking notes, writing things down. More like holding timestamps for when things are talked about. And I'm also streaming this because I keep giving out some of my thoughts on things, and it's things that probably won't all be included in the video. So I guess I guess I'll include this as a side link. I've already gone through so much of it, and I don't know how much I'll talk about it in the next half, but I just thought it'd be fun. I'm already rambling to myself anyway. So yeah, for now I'm gonna keep this going, but as you'll see, just as I'm going through it, I'm just gonna be talking. Please subscribe to. Well, if you enjoy the content, I did not. This particular video, I think his Dark Souls video is probably pretty good though. Please look at his videos. He is not just known for this. He is also known, I think, for the Genshin Impact video is like his big one. Let me sort by biggest. Yeah, Genshin Impact, Lovecraftian games, Fallout. I remember a review of every major CRPG from the last 10 years. And all videos that, by logic, shouldn't give as many views as they do, but they do. Please check out his channel. I think I've clicked on this one before. I just never give it the full watch. Yeah, please give his channel check it out. Maybe don't check out this video because I don't think it's very well made. But outside of that, oh, I just realized this would be a good way. Let me see docs. Can I put chat up? Cool. I can actually have chat up for this one because I'm just looking at content, analyzing it, all that. So yeah, throughout I'm gonna pause it. I disagreed so much with the last bit of here, but I'm not gonna go back over it. I'm just gonna keep going.
Now, I won't try to argue that there aren't people who enjoy looking things up and playing these games that way. For example, here is Moa Gervais describing his experience of using a guide to defeat Malenia.
On my second try, on the hardest boss of the game, and perhaps the Souls-like genre in general, I managed to use my toolset to completely min-max my Mimic Tear, so that all of her formidable advantages melted to nothing. I was able to completely shut down and bypass just about every individual element of her difficulty. There are people who would tell you that there is no way that this is satisfying, that it is not a fair fight, and therefore not a valid one. I disagree. I don't know if I have ever personally felt such absolute incandescent joy after a boss fight, not across any other From Software games where I fought in a way that was more obviously fair. In my desperate desire to win by any means necessary and avoid being stuck on the 120...
This is so weird. I'm reacting to him showing off a clip in this video. I feel like that's probably really weird. But, hey, it's fine,
hour of the game, I went so far past what was necessary that my Mimic Tear represented a more dangerous and unbalanced foe than Malenia herself.
Oh, and also, I'm going to leave the video sped up because that's how I've been consuming it. And also, if you want to see the video at a proper speed, actually watch it. This is more of a stream for me than anything else because I just think it'd be fun to have some of my thoughts out. And also, maybe I'll take some things back in the actual writing of the video.
Herself. This, to me, is not a cheese. It is a triumph. Perhaps the greatest triumph of my entire experience with From Software games in general.
So clearly, some people get great enjoyment from metagaming, and I think that's fine. What I don't think is fine is creating a difficulty so high that players who don't want to play this way feel forced to.
Okay, see, this is why I started the stream. Okay, so a brief bit of what I've talked about. A lot of Never Knows Best complaints about the end game and a lot of the things done in the end game is it's not invalid critiques. It's more that I just don't like where they're coming from. He keeps describing, like, Malenia is individually a huge problem in Elden Ring. I will stand by that. I think that From Software can't really nerf her without it really feeling like a huge drawback. I think that's why Radahn got updates in the first couple months, but Malenia has not been touched, because in a way, I don't even think they think the fight is fair. I think it's the kind of thing that they just think, well, there are ways to overcome it, and that's how they will go address it. And I think someone else made a comment somewhere, either on this video or on Joseph Anderson's video, that I think is very well said. Malenia feels more like a Sekiro boss than it would be a boss in this game. And I think it's just because of the high speed, and I think Waterfowl Dance would make much more sense in Sekiro, because, and I guess they just wanted to carry it over, and I think that's the issue. Truly take away Waterfowl Dance, Malenia is fine. Even the health regen mechanic is fine, and I think most people would be fine with it. Or just have it in like, not last 30% of the health. Maybe introduce it second phase, like halfway on the health, but still keep it infrequent. I think since it's there from the beginning, that's what sucks. And he talked about earlier that there was a moment where the AI kept doing the exact same Waterfowl Dance when you staggered her, and then hit her. But I think that makes sense, like, mechanically. Like, that would be her defense. It's funny enough, some people, because sometimes he's complaining about things are too predictable, which is what he learned, that's I think what the game is more trying to say, is that, hey, if that's what's happening, but he's also talking about how it was related to input buffering being a problem, but that's, general point being, I think Malenia is an individual problem, and same thing with the Radagon Elden Beast fight. I don't think Radagon and Elden Beast I don't think individually they would be problematic. I think if you just went to Elden Beast fight, all your health and stuff, now I mean, it felt good when you eventually had enough stuff, like health and stuff, to actually beat both bosses in one go. But I think that is also artificial difficulty. I think individually the fights are fine, though. Like in the same way that in DS2 there was the Watcher in the Throne... Watcher and Defender fight. Going into the... what was her name? Going into the last boss. And those are separated. And I think that would be good here. Or, as many people say, it looks like Elden Beast was designed to have Torrent there, but you can't. And I think if that was the case, even that fight would be fine, because I would really give use for the horse combat. Maybe they couldn't balance it though. But no, that can't be true. Anyway.
Or creating a difficulty so high that players aren't able to learn through perseverance anymore. Or creating a difficulty so high that the cracks in the gameplay systems are exposed. And at the very least, this is what Malenia and Waterfowl Dance do. And I think you can make an argument.
Not least, that is the individual. I mean, like I said, Elden Beast has the unavoidable move, which also sucks. But I think realistically, like most everything else in the game, even in the late game, come on. I mean, anyone who's played the games, you skipped most of those enemies, even if that area was unfair. But well, I'll get into the running away thing either in the video or just maybe I'll rant about it here if he brings it up.
Argument that there might be more offenders than this. Now, surely there must...
I think that's probably where I would... I guess I'm writing notes in Notion. I think I probably would want to end it there, which... What would I label that last section?
Actually, with no caregiver...
I'll just say... the core of his complaints, because he covers a lot of his, like, the core things that I disagree about in that sector.
Foul Dance do, and I think you can make an argument.
Oh, sorry. I'll point this out now because I'm gonna have it in the video anyway. Okay, so this man complains about stance breaking twice. Oh, I forgot to put the... Okay. Did I forget? Oh, yeah. Okay. So it's going to be like a joke clip in the actual video, but this man messes up. Let's see. Where am I at? No, I have timestamps. He completely messed up. Wait, no. Where did I do it? Is it there? Oh, the thumbnail is tricking me. So
It's a single non-jumping attack. He exclusively jump attacked from
oh, no,
start to finish.
I have the introduction.
It turns out jumping power attacks are very meta for strength builds, to the point where some players, like Asmongold, might use them exclusively for certain fights. These jumping attacks have several advantages. They provide fast gap closure.
Now, just so it's said, I'm going to say this ahead of time because you're going to see it again. I'm going to keep complaining about it, but I guess I just want it as a clip. What he's doing right there, if you're using a PS5 controller, or that's what I'm using, it's the back buttons. So it'd be R2 for me, but it'd be RT on Xbox, and I have my Pro controller somewhere, but it's the back buttons. Just so it's said, it's important here.
Give you iframes on much of your hitbox, do high damage, do high amounts of stagger, and do considerable posture damage, which eventually grants you a stance break and critical hit. Jumping power attacks are strong, but I never knew that. Now, in Elden
Now, just so it's said, up to this point, it's completely fine, what he said so far.
Ring's defense, there is one pop-up message during the tutorial which mentions jump attacks, alongside charged attacks as a means of stance breaking.
Because, like, with all the other tutorials, there really shouldn't be a reason to repeat it. And I also want to repeat, hold RT is charge attack, RT while jumping is jump attack. Once again, really want to repeat it.
So the game does tell you they exist. In my defense, you can't see posture damage, and to go alongside this brief pop-up, the game only provides
Sorry, I paused too early.
a basic enemy who doesn't even react upon receiving a jumping attack.
Because you didn't do the right one, my guy. It's... Oh, God. Now, remember. Now, I'm going to read this tutorial along with you guys. Stance breaking. Some attacks may break an enemy's stance, giving you the chance to perform a critical hit. Charge attack and jump attacks. If his argument is that he did the wrong jump attack, it still says which button to press. I don't even know if my cursor is on screen, so maybe you can't see it. But it still very clearly says RT while jumping, jump attack. Hold RT, charge attack. In the video, I literally have a clip of me making a new character, going and doing this, just to make sure, in the same class using, which is Vagabond, because if you...
and to go alongside this brief pop-up, the game only provides
Because if you see his weapon, it is the... it's the longsword, which I'm like, one of the classes I think starts with that. So I went and did that. Also, I'm pretty sure... But I don't know if this is his... If this is footage from the first time he played, he just made a very ignorant mistake and just didn't read what the box said. Also said charge attacks, which is another thing he does not do, which both are correlated to the same button. And to be clear, it is completely fine that he was without jump attacks. It's fine. And he goes into that. And I'll play that clip too. But he just didn't do the right thing. And he's like, the games don't tell you that this is useful. It does. You were pressing the wrong button, my dude. And look, here's my... And this goes into a bigger thing I'll talk about in the video. But critical mindset makes you too much of a critic. Like, if you're someone who just picks up the game and plays it, or if this was your first Souls game, you're not going to make this mistake. You'll be like RT, and you'll even be like, that didn't break his stance, or do whatever it was talking about. That didn't change anything. Maybe you'll pass it off, but maybe in another way, you won't. Anyway, he clearly didn't know, and, well, I'll let it continue.
basic enemy who doesn't even react upon receiving a jumping attack.
Which, like I said, I literally went... Now, just for context, and I say it in the clip I use, I am using a mod called Elden Ring Reforged. But I need to make sure that the attack animation was the same with the jumping attack, and it is. I'll just save that one short. So even if it's like, oh, they made it more likely, it's crazy.
Which doesn't...
Also, all these enemies react to the same stance break. So even if you don't want to do what I did to test it out, you could literally just open a new character, hit one of them with a jumping RT or a charge attack, and I'm pretty sure it will go through.
do a very good job at communicating that this is an important or even useful part of your toolset.
But see, like, that's wrong. It's a tutorial. Nothing else. For example, lock on. All of that, use that throughout the entire game. If it brings it up right before you exit the tutorial cave, it is important. See, like, I'm not going to ramble this much in the actual video. Like, I think I would just let it go. But I think it's stupid how much he hinges on this point. And it's just, you did it wrong, dude. It's truly crazy.
Keep in mind that jumping attacks have been a part of these games since Dark Souls 1, and they have...
And also, I go into another thing with stop bringing up Dark Souls. Like, I have a thumbnail. It will clarify it all. But this argument's invalid entirely.
never seemed very useful in the past. So,
Because you know what else wasn't available in Dark Souls 1? Proper jumping. There was jumping. If not, even that maybe that was just DS2. But I think... I think Sen's DS2. But no, I think it's been in all of them. A very bad version of jumping and making distance. Yeah, That was also new to Elden Ring because they're a different series. You know what else Elden Ring / Souls games don't have? Trick weapons, because it's part of Bloodborne. You know what they also don't have? The entire Sekiro lineup in moveset. Some of that carried over into Elden Ring, which is the closest to an example, but still, you don't have the posture meter. Because Elden Ring, in a way, it really is a mesh of a lot of it. I'd say besides Bloodborne. Well, actually, maybe Bloodborne is just the ability for more bosses to be staggerable.
Though I never thought to start using them now. This may be a good thing. Having another tool at your disposal that you can strategically employ when it fits a specific situation is a big positive, but I don't think I would enjoy playing through the entirety of Elden Ring doing nothing but jump attacks. To me,
but here's what goes back to everything, and I'll continue the video. Who said they were doing this the entire time? It's just a bad argument. It's like no one's playing the entire game like that. If they are, they would. It's the kind of thing where I believe if someone's doing that throughout the entire game and they're having a good time, there's, as Joseph Anderson says in his video, there's no wrong way to play. It's just a different style, and you'd get different outcomes, and it's hard to compare. Except he says they're incomparable. I say they're hard to compare. Still playing the same game, but the issue is, it's mostly just on Radagon. Elden Beast takes too much to do it, but you can technically do it on him, and most easily Malenia, because they're difficult. Well, Malenia is just bad. I will never disagree about that. I think most of her moveset's fine. I think it's just because I actually find out he references Donkey's video, and I'm like, oh, Donkey does. I guess he does complain about things, but Donkey complains about it short, simple, and I think correctly. I think he even says knock down the damage by 70%, and this game's fine, or in the end game. And I'd rather just armor be more important, because I think that just makes more sense. And I think some mods like Elden Ring Reforged, the mod I've been using in my run, I think it does handle that way. But anyway.
That would make the gameplay less varied and ruin some of the immersion, even if it is a more effective way to play. So maybe I was actually lucky that I didn't realize jump attacks are the meta for strength builds.
Also, I hate his whole thing about the meta, but I'm gonna leave that alone. It's just not a good argument as well. But that one has more context, because that one I more understand what he's coming from, but I just have an argument for it.
Now, surely there must be a point where hard becomes too hard. And have we not crossed it? So, I ask.
But here's my thing I will return to. If Malenia didn't have Waterfowl Dance, if Radagon and Elden Beast were separated boss fights, their difficulty is gone. They're all tolerable. It's simply bad organization. And also giving Malenia Waterfowl Dance like that was some kind of fair way of going. It's flashy, and I love that you get that ability from her weapon. But I just, either have it be shorter or have it just do less damage. Let it be a health regeneration thing. Like, oh no, like it's barely going to hurt, but it's going to also all that health back up. And I think that would be a much more effective use of Waterfowl Dance. But then just rename it to something like Scarlet Resonance or something.
Why does the game have to be quite so hard? Players with the highest skill that want the hardest challenges are basically just the inverse of people looking things up to make the game easier, in that they do specific challenges or speedruns to make the game harder. So having a very high base difficulty isn't really catering to them anyway. Meanwhile, players
Also, if anything, he's just proving that you don't need to follow this meta to get there. But anyway.
with the least interest in a challenging experience already look things up to make the game easier, so a game that's already easier surely wouldn't harm their experience.
It doesn't need to be easier. It doesn't. I think things need to be balanced a little better. I won't deny that, and I have that in my video. I think the idea, just so it's said, I'm not against the idea. I'm not going to say this game is untouchable. It doesn't need rebalancing. I just think the arguments that are being presented on why it needs to be rebalanced is wrong. Malenia just needs to change Waterfowl Dance. Promise you she's fine. 'Cause I was more annoyed about her health regenerating mechanic until I just... Also... I really wish her rune was earlier in the game. I wish the rune system was a little separate, because it's just too far. Because no one's going to care to use it by the time you get to Malenia. Like, it's just a weird thing. I don't think you can use runes in PvP, so I just genuinely don't know the use. But then there's, yeah. Well, anyway, I think I get my point across.
And lastly, players who want to do things themselves, play with their preferred weapons and builds, and learn through failure could then, once again, be included.
Once again, I think his argument's fair solely for Malenia. And because, for example, people like Malekith and stuff, I think it's perfectly fine. And he earlier makes an argument like, oh, you have to wait so long just to get a single hit in. Isn't that Dark Souls? isn't that dark. Now, was it Dark Souls 3? No. Dark Souls 3 was pretty. You could get a lot of hits in that game, if I'm remembering right. And even Nameless King, I will want to do a whole video on Nameless King, but with what I'm going to do with the channel, it probably would be like an extra video down the line or something. Nameless King is one of the easiest bosses I've ever dealt with. I'll have to retrain myself, because when I say that, people are going to be like, proven. I'm like, okay, if that's what you want me to do. Anyway, I just man.
And by the way, for all the different criticisms I have heard over the years of Souls games, Bloodborne, and Sekiro, one thing I haven't heard very often is people complaining these games are too easy. So maybe it's time From Software stop trying to outdo themselves by continually one-upping the difficulty, or if they really do want to continue down this path, then at the very least, they need to vastly improve the balance and address certain gameplay problems so that these...
I think there's probably some rush in there, but I think truly they just didn't get. I think they truly just didn't balance it right. Like, I think the only reason that there's not been balance patches afterwards, and I think that there's just either had people above or even Miyazaki. I'd love to ask Miyazaki, do you think this game's end game is entirely well balanced? I wouldn't ask about Millennia because I think that one's just too egregious. Like, I don't want to ask you about Millennia. Millennia should be addressed as something that needs to be fixed. Regardless, like, I'm not gonna be like, do you think Millennia is too hard? Because if actually I will just wait for the mod that will fix her. Like, it's just I don't need clarification, because if he's like, no, I think Millennia really gets to the heart of things. I don't know why I gave it that accent, but I just think it's a wrong opinion that Millennia is not too much.
games can actually cope with this ever greater pressure the difficulty puts on them. If they don't, the meta will only become more and more dominant as more...
It's not a meta, because once again, Shamers and Builds from 3 YouTube compilations. Guys, remember, this is just for Millennia. Because you know what he didn't do? He didn't watch entire playthroughs of the game for each person. Nor should he. That's way too much for a video essay. But to complain about a meta, because I won't say these weapons in a way weren't too strong. Or maybe, hey, you could, but you know what else you can do? You can abuse any mechanic. Because you know what else you can do? Let's say you want to get your weapon immediately to level 6 without fighting Margit. If you Google it, you can look up that entire thing. You know when people look up a meta? When they simply don't want to keep fighting the boss anymore, and they just don't want to keep dealing with it. Excuse me. Which that's a huge one, because I think a lot of people just want to preserve their time. Is Connor even on here? Nah, he should have clipped from my favorite boy, Sea Dog VA, but just that was it. So there's that. Sorry, I gave a bit of a thought. I burp once. I'm just like, oh, my thoughts are gone. But anyway, there's 3 Millennia compilations. I think it's wrong to try to make this statement about the entire game without more examples from Malekith, more examples from other bosses in the end game. Because you know who's not in any of these complaints? Horialu. There's no complaints about Godfrey whatsoever, as far as I'm aware. Even Radagon Stage 1, I think, is fine. I think most people, it's just Elden Beast. And if we look into, so a lot of enemies are really tough. And once again, it's a video essay of its own. Has From Software gotten to a point where they expect you to run from enemies? Because I actually watched a Dark Souls 2 video essay about how it's a good game, but Scholar of the First Sin sucked. That Dark Souls 2 teaches you to want to run away from enemies, while Dark Souls 2 base game does not. Same thing with Dark Souls 1. But like, I think that there's more and more set dressing that they're expecting you to not always try to fight things. So, I don't know.
More and more players come to see this as the way these games are meant to be played, while those who ignore the meta get punished more and more heavily, and apparently even mocked. There are a lot of things you could make fun of Elon Musk for, but one thing you can't is his Elden Ring build not being meta enough. And yet, Elon Musk's only slightly unusual build led to 20 plus articles, multiple...
Okay, hold on real quick. I want to look at the... Because, you know what? In fact, I'll pull up the... Actually, no, I won't. Here's what I'll do. I'll pull it up on my phone, so that way it's a bit more of a secure passageway to get there. Elden Ring build. So, I do love that it was a controversy. I think it was funny. So let me quickly look. You know what? Actually, I'll just look at it on my phone, so that way I don't have to worry about anything being weird. What the fuck is this build? So let me see. It looks like, why does he have 2 shields? Probably for different damage prevention. Oh wait, no, that's not the no, god damn, is it Dextero? I want to see the actual tweet. Or maybe he removed it. Equipped load will be lower if fast roll is needed. You know, heavy armor for damage prevention, shields for damage prevention, cast some spells. He has Moonveil in here. I would say that this is pretty meta. You know, I think this is no, but like his equip load gotta be terrible, right? Yeah, right under. I think he's just one of the rare people that doesn't mind fat rolling, so I think that's fine. Still to have the hard damage magic staff. I wish we saw his spells because that would help here too. Moonveil. No, no, he's going for clearly a magic. Oh yeah, I forgot. It shows his stats too. Yeah, he's very clearly going for a magic build. But I think he has Moonveil in there because he wants to be OP sometimes. And he probably hit a point where his equip load was just too high anyway, so he just thought may as well commit because he's fine with it. But he's using Soar Seal. Why is he using Soar Seal? His armor essentially goes out the way. It's not a fine build. Wait, Power Mage, but decent with a sword and katana. But they're all magic. I guess I just don't know what his goal is. No, I still think this build's weird. Did it deserve the articles on it? No, but it's Elon Musk. It was going to happen.
And yet, Elon Musk's only slightly unusual build led to 20...
See, slightly unusual. It's what's wrong here. No, it's a very weird build. It's Radahn's armor, besides the thing that boosts magic a little bit more. A magic talisman, health boost talisman, which he seems to have decent health. Not as much as most people, which I respect. But he's heavy equip load and Soar Seal. I guess I just don't know why he would do that. His endurance is kind of low. So, yeah. I think it's an unusual build. We can
not being meta, multiple YouTube videos, and thousands upon thousands of tweets, all about how stupid he is for playing the game slightly off meta.
I need to know your reference. Show your build. What do you mean slightly? What are you doing? I think, of course, I love the fifth one down. Well, I do love poor Elon's maiden list, but of course it's stupid. Too many people make the same joke about
how dumb this is, how this is apparently disgraceful and offensive even. But I guess this is just what inclusive and accessible difficulty looks like. Thank you, From Software.
And he's blaming From Software for it. What are you on about, dude? What is this build that this guy was supposed to be a genius? Is a great tweet. I do think it's funny. I think anyone with common sense wouldn't be doing that build. Or would shift it a little bit. Now, here's the thing. Here we go. 2 shields for no reason. Maybe just higher damage resistance if it's like spell resistance. Because he probably doesn't have carry and retaliation. Fat rolling, think that's fine. It's just person dependent. Low vigor, which I respect. I think that's perfectly fine. 5 memory slots. What? Okay, 2 shields. Like, that one, I don't know. Fat rolling is fine, just weird. Low vigor, also kind of weird if you're fat rolling. Because he says power mage. I just don't know. 5 memory slots, which there's nothing wrong with that. Staff in right hand, 2 main weapons equipped at the same time. I think that's fine, because if you already pass a certain equip load, I just don't know what his goal is. Maybe he just really wanted to get used to fat rolling. But I don't think it's entirely garbage. I think it's just weird.
What a great improvement. Meta is the enemy of fun. It ruins immersion, diminishes accomplishment.
No. See, this whole segment, it's so stupid. I said if he talked about the meta, I'd bring it up. Metas exist in literally every From Software game. It just depends who you are as a player. So he's like, more and more people are getting into the meta. It's not that. More and more people are becoming people that are fans of From Software. That is the truth. It's not... It's... You know how many sales Elden Ring has as of the last time they publicized sales? That's my way of saying I don't know the actual stat. Sales number. I don't know if it's still the biggest game. As of August 2022, 16.6 million. Let's go to Dark Souls 3. I think that'd be a better presumption. 10 million by 2020. In 1 year, crushed it. Sekiro, I can't imagine Sekiro has more than DS3. Yeah, over 5 million by 2020. It's also newer, so that's fine. Might be doing pretty good. There's more people than ever. This game had an explosive cycle on release. So yeah, more and more people are going to want to take advantage of it and get these views. That get overpowered at the start video, it's hard to see here, but it says 6 million views. And that's from when he made this video. If I do... Oh, God. Yeah, I really just don't want to show my tabs. I'll just say this as a wink and a nod to my fellow people. I just don't delete my I don't delete my history much, so I just don't want this to be weird. I get overpowered early in Elden Ring. Who is this? Elden Ring guide tips. Also, you're dissing Yimfa. I just think that's a hard battle to fight. It looked like. All right. Oh, let me quickly. At the very. Yeah, very. Oh, I cannot type. Very start. Okay, Boomstick. Okay, hasn't gotten too many more views since then, but
leads to less
probably had like an explosive start, but then started whittling down, or people just didn't like the video.
Experimentation, less individuality, less agency, worsens any existing balance problems, reduces the sense of a shared experience, leads to arguments about the correct way to play, and just shits all over what should be an incredible gaming experience. Some games are about min-maxing, but this is not one of them.
Here's the thing, and I appreciate that you say that, but it is a From Software title, and for me, I've always had a little bit of it. And I've had to unwind myself because I was doing this thing in DS1 where I wasn't like being super optimal, but I literally decided at some point when I was playing Dark Souls 1, you know what? No, I really like this katana. I'm gonna take this one to the end. And it was great. Here's the thing though. I did look up where the individual, I think my general rule is if I'm not in the area, I'm not gonna go grab the item. Don't think I'd follow that for Elden Ring probably, but I just got a really cool katana I liked, and I just carried that to the end of the game. But I did look up the upgrade materials because I just didn't know where they were or even how to get there most of the time. I just got lost too easily. If anything, I got lost the least in DS3, and I think second place would be Elden Ring. Probably Sekiro in there too. But no, actually I've gotten lost in Sekiro. I get lost easily.
Some games suffer little if you look things up, but this is not one of them. And some games are competitive multiplayer experiences where
I think there's a right way of looking things up. I think you should only look it up, not if you go straight to it, but if you want to know what general region it's at. Like if you want a certain weapon, if you just say, okay, where is it? Okay, when I get here, or maybe you're like, okay, I'll go there right now. If it helps guide your gameplay to certain areas, I think if you look up exactly where it is and only grab it and ignore the area and go on torrent, which I think is a huge problem for Elden Ring, and then go that way, I think that is when you are ruining it. But otherwise, it's fine. But like I said, I'll have to talk about this in my video.
There will always be a focus on the meta, as players need every advantage to compete. But this is not one of them. I have seen the meta destroy entire genres. I have seen it bring some of the greatest games of all time to their knees, and I just fucking hate the idea of From...
Also, what games are the greatest of all time if your meta's got, like, too much? Like, League of Legends? I am curious what he's referencing here.
Software's future games becoming more and more meta-centric, although...
But the good news is they're not, because it's not meta-centric. They eventually, now I know it wasn't at this point, but they eventually nerfed Bloodhound Step a little bit. Rivers of Blood, either in this update or the one before it. They eventually did some tweaks, but it's like, come on. They still did mess with other things, 'cause other things are fine, dude.
Seems...
Because, for example, I think the Dark Moon Greatsword, I think would be a really good build, because that's actually what I was using. I think it would have been really good in PvP. These are a fantastic weapon.
Like I'm already too late.
Well, there's also Wing of Estelle, which is a very similar thing, but for faster people.
The very final thing I need to address here is the inevitable question that ends up being asked alongside all this, which is, why don't you just use Spirit Ashes?
Which I think it's a fair question, but I think it's also an unfair question because a lot of his, in this, well, give him, a lot of his argument is about using the, like, being able to use whatever you want. So if people don't want to use Spirit Ashes, I think that's a fine example. Like, I think it's a fine argument to be like, but also Spirit Ashes aren't the most well made, and he might talk about that. I don't remember.
They make the game easier, after all, and you complain the game becomes too hard, yet this is what Spirit Ashes are for. The answer to this is that summoning changes the gameplay to the point where it becomes an entirely different experience, and just because someone is a fan of one type of experience doesn't mean they enjoy the other.
I think that's still a bad answer, though. It doesn't change it that much. I think the summons are something that really could have been so much better if they spent more time on it. I think it was clearly inspired by that one DS3 mod that can do it. I think that they just dropped the ball on it. Like, I think Mimic Tier is very obviously too strong, and I think they debuffed it a little bit. I think that's even from this episode or this video's release update. Because so many of them aren't useful, and I think that they just need to make the AI like a little. Like, I think they need to make it so Spirit Ashes are more unique. Like, they attack faster, but maybe they don't do as much damage. And balance it based on like in the same way that you balance. I think like Spirit Ashes should have been like. Now people might disagree on this, but I think they should have been another thing that went up to like 25 instead, so they can kind of get better with you. Rather than, because if you do it to 10, sure, it's simpler, but the scaling on that's much harder to do well. And also, Sombers are much easier to find, and From Software should have fixed that. But, and actually, funny enough, Reforged has done a good fix for that as well. So, Reforged, anyone who's playing on PC, just run Elden Ring Reforged. Look up how to do it. It's a fantastic mod. It's an essential. I think you'll enjoy the game more for that. Because, just to reiterate, I don't think that Elden Ring is void of issues. I just think most of them. This guy misinterprets.
In Elden Ring,
or misexplains.
Summons are more impactful than ever before. To some people, using them makes the game more enjoyable, and to other people, it ruins the enjoyment, because these are different experiences that appeal to different players. Many of the things which drew people to these games in the first place, and led people to praise their gameplay, aren't present when summoning, like the...
And this is where I go back to that critical mindset thing, is taking over this guy's POV. Elden Ring is a different game. Sekiro is a different game. Bloodborne is a different game. And they function differently because of that. Because some people could say, oh, disposable and easy to get back healing is not what this game was not what this series was founded on. Oh, Sekiro, weapon diversity, it's not what these games were founded upon. The reason they're saying that is because everyone keeps thinking this game is Dark Souls 4. And that's such a huge point in my video. But I'll get to that when I make it, or when I finish it. I forgot that I was even taking notes. I guess, truth be told, I don't think it's necessarily... He's just still, I don't think he said anything out of what I've read.
The feeling of a 1v1 duel, or learning a boss's moveset, or overcoming a challenge on your own. Some people say From Software clearly intended...
Also, it's not a video explicitly about his video. It's about just a couple of points I feel like talking about. Some other things here I just don't think is necessary. Like... I complain about the meta a lot here, but I don't actually know if I'll put that in the video, because though I think it'd be decent content, I just don't think it would be. I don't think it's good to go, like, I don't think, like, for example, like, I have a lot of notes. Joseph Anderson's video, I just have a couple key notes, and I kind of left it at that. Never Knows Best is why this video is getting made. I disagreed with literally the entire video for the most part. But he also does something in the last quarter, or the last third here, I think it's very powerful. I think it's very good. But, we'll get there.
All players to use summons, otherwise they wouldn't have added them. But I feel it's worth pointing out that From Software have still not bothered to include boss AI for summons. By which I mean, bosses are not capable of detecting that multiple opponents exist, meaning they always ignore one person dependent on who was the last one to damage them, leading to very unrealistic and easily exploitable boss behavior. From this, I think it's clear that the gameplay experience...
Like, that's what I mean by I think that they dropped the ball. I think, like, because I don't think boss AI is the way he's describing it, but I do agree that they did not but like, for them offering Spirit Ashes, like, I think if they do a follow-up to this game, which I don't know if they've announced that yet, I think that they probably would. If they were to do that, I think if they just use the same engine, like, let's say Elden Ring, it's not Elden Ring 2, but just keeps having follow-ups, I think it'll get better in the next game. I think this is just a bad first attempt for the concept of Spirit Ashes.
Experience with summons wasn't seen as much of a priority, making it hard to believe that the developers did intend all players to have to use them. Also, the argument that they exist, therefore all players are meant to use them, doesn't hold up, as this could be applied to everything in-game. For example...
but I also feel that way about your, like, I don't know. I just don't think his arguments here are very well done.
example, just because lots of shields exist doesn't mean that this is the developer's way of telling people all players should use shields. If something exists, it's proof the developers want it to be an option, not proof the developers want it to be a requirement. Likewise, I don't know how anyone could claim that Spirit Ashes are balanced. Mimic Tier can solo any boss in the game, and this
Which, like I said, this... Oh, wait, hold on.
is after being nerfed.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, like I said, like I said, terrible first attempt, and I agree with him on that.
With a meta build, all the player needs to do is summon them
But I hate him thinking of it as like, oh, it's a meta thing. Because if you just... I don't know. Still think it's...
and then go AFK. This is quite obviously not balanced, and I also don't see how this can be the intended experience for everyone. Still, at the very least, I hope people can understand how some might not find this very enjoyable. And again, I'm not claiming that no one would enjoy this, I'm just saying that not everyone would. These games have always had summons, and most
But also, I'll go to you, Mr. Never Knows Best. I also don't think saying... I'm saying I don't think everyone would enjoy this. Just in the same way that I made a poor mistake years ago. It's a side thing. I don't think I'll talk about it in the video, but where because of H Bomber Guy's video, that was like, oh yeah, shields are like an obsolete way to play. Now you play how you want. Some people play with shields, some people play without. In fact, in this game, they give the most justification to shields than ever before. So that it's not a requirement, it's just better. But funny enough, once again, for Malenia, still doesn't matter though, which is something that I think is very poor on From's behalf.
people have always chosen to play without them. Summoning has always made these games easier, so players have a large incentive to use them, and yet many people still didn't, because for them, it led to a less enjoyable experience. You might try to tell yourself this
I did though. I summoned. And it was fun. I got to play with my boy Solaire sometimes. And I thought it was pretty cool. So I get what he's saying, but it's like he's speaking for a majority, and I think like, but I'm not gonna be like I like summoning, because yeah, that's not an argument. That's just me saying I'm one of the couple who, because I won't say many people would, but I think Spirit Ashes do provide a way of summoning that is more engaging than in past games. Because I think summoning Roger to fight Margit isn't the most exciting, but maybe if you're really into Horia Lu's character, or Nephili Lu's character, I think like you could really enjoy like her being there if you're invested.
this isn't true, and that people avoid summoning because of gatekeepers and elitists. But if you really think that, I would like to ask you, what is it the gatekeepers and elitists do to stop people from summoning? Because when you play one of these games, no one knows if you use summons or not, and there are no negative consequences to using them. Nor are there special perks for avoiding summoning. You cannot upload your no-summon playthrough to Tinder to help you find a maiden, nor
He's joking around, but that's funny. I was originally gonna say, come on, but like, okay, no. But if I'm
can
laughing,
you add it to your CV to find a higher-paying job. People were freely able to decide for themselves whether to use summons or not, and many people chose not to, because
I still want to know where he's getting that from. I know he just thinks most people don't, but it's mostly Souls vets that don't. Maybe people that only played just Dark Souls 1 or 2 or 3. I don't think you can Bloodborne or Sekiro. I think like if you do it like that, I think that there probably is an audience of people that that probably did. You know, it's just not the commonly, in the same way as the loudest is usually the minority, but except there's so many people that, and also there's so, anyway. It's funny that I'm like complaining about this video because it doesn't even have like millions of views. I just think it's wrong. And I do think his Dark Souls video deserves more views. So if my video blows up, give the Dark Souls video more views. It seems like it's more interesting anyway.
that's what they found more enjoyable. Still, even if once upon a time most people didn't use summons, this isn't true anymore. In Elden Ring,
Oh, okay. Did you summon in your gameplay? Yes. Or yes all the time. That's a pretty big chunk. What is your deal? No, it's easy mode. That's a no, not in line with my build. I think that makes sense. Yes, sometimes. Also same, yeah. No, it's easy mode. You're just talking about Mimic Tier. Most of them aren't good.
summon playthrough to Tinder to help you find a maiden, nor can you add it to people chose not to, because it isn't true anymore. In Elden Ring, the majority of people do seem to use them, which has led to a bit of a role reversal, where now some people have started attacking anyone who dares not to use them for being an elitist or an idiot. But they're not. They are just people who enjoy something different to you, that's all. And if you were someone who considered it wrong to shame people for using summons in the past, should you not also consider it wrong to shame people for not using them?
See, here's the thing, and this is what Joseph Anderson does really good for his video. He just keeps it short. Use whatever build you want, because that's what's most fun for you. And that's why that video has many more views outside of a bigger sub range. Yeah, because didn't need all that to get to the same point. But yeah, I'm critiquing the video for other things, and I can take notes on that.
Elden Ring communicates things.
And like I said, this part, I think I disagree with things here, but it's mainly in gameplay that I care about it. But story stuff, I'm here to take thorough notes, so.
The Fallen Leaves tell a story, but I'm not convinced it's a good one. I have completed Elden Ring 2 times. I have watched a reasonable amount of lore videos, and I have spent a
Sorry, I think it's my first time. I think I was like listening in the background during that. That's pretty good.
considerable amount of time reflecting on the information presented within this game. One thing I haven't found yet is any reason the player is meant to care about all this.
Oh no, I just remembered why I disagree with so much about this now. We'll get to it, but yeah.
Now, From Software have become famous for their confusing narratives, but I would like to compare the different openings of these games. In Demon Souls, you find yourself stuck in the kingdom of Boletaria, where demons are consuming the souls of humans to turn them into monsters. Humanity is facing an existential threat, and you become another poor soul trying to fight this. In Dark Souls, the life-sustaining first flame is fading, and it's resulting in humans losing their sanity. Humanity is facing an existential threat, and you become another poor soul trying to fight this. In Bloodborne, you wake up to find yourself trapped in a nightmare where people, and worse, are hunting you in the streets. Your objective is to survive the nightmare, and to do this you undertake a journey that transforms you from hunted to hunter. In Sekiro, you take the role of Sekiro, who has dedicated his life to protecting a child named Kuro. Someone Sekiro has many reasons to care about, like out of a sense of honor, Kuro saving his life, and Kuro being an innocent. And so, Sekiro tries to fulfill his duty and protect him. In Elden Ring, you are a Tarnished who wakes up in the Lands Between, and then sets out to kill every important person here to try to become the Elden Lord.
I think he's putting that short. Let me look up Elden Ring, no commentary. Let's watch a little bit together. Oh wait, no. The cutscene he was pulling from was right after the visual opening.
One other, whom grace would again bless,
I didn't know it was all part
a
of the game.
tarnished of no renown. Cross the fog to the lands between, to stand before the Elden Ring.
So I think what Never Knows Best is misstating here. It's not about that. I think a lot of Elden Ring, and I think it's in a lot of Souls thematic stuff too. I think it's a lot of it's about manipulation. You know? I think that's the core of what Elden Ring is doing. Let me just see. Sorry, I was checking some personal side stuff. Anyway, I think a lot of Elden Ring stuff is about manipulation. I think a lot of it's about, yeah, you have this set goal, but the world itself is trying to manipulate someone into trying to bring it some sense of control. I think that's the difference, is that the other Souls games, you weren't important. This is another, yeah, you are one of many trying to do the exact same thing, trying to get some importance to yourself. So.
But this is not your war, so why would I want to get involved in it? And this is not your land, so why would I want to rule it?
No, he's asking, in fact, the right questions. The idea is that your answer is supposed to be, yeah, I'm not into this. Like, yeah, the idea is that people are trying to lead you into doing something that you may not want to do.
I mean, it doesn't seem like a very nice place.
I also think it's playing with player expectations, is that you see that and you're like, okay, sure, I'll do it because From Software. Yeah. So I think part of it is if you're like, well, I don't know these people. Why do I care about this? And then the idea is that you're like, all right, I'm going to go do something else. I'm going to go talk to Blade and develop a connection. Do something there. I'm going to go feed this guy Deathroot because, I don't know, sure, he keeps asking me for it and he seems kind of cool. The idea is that they throw you into a world and like the rest of the reason like you were in a cave is probably many people that just raised the thing and then just exited the hole, same as you. And but he's like, oh, you're made. Well,
everyone just tries to kill each other. There is a religious aspect to these events where you were apparently once banished by the Light of Grace, and now it is welcoming you back and trying to guide you. And it is nice that the Light of Grace wants me back after banishing me, but why would I want it back? It banished me, and as far as I can tell, I don't owe it anything. In fact,
and like I said, he's saying all the right things. So it is. So don't. That's why the different endings are there.
I don't even know what it is. Maybe we are stuck.
It's this. It's literally. Actually, you know what? This is stupid because this is literally the exact same argument as Dark Souls 3. You exist in the world. It's like, just let us die, and it's your choice. Do you want to let it die, or do you want to be the reason it keeps going? And it doesn't really make you feel good about either one of those choices. So I, in fact, think he's quite wrong there, but I forgot to start taking notes again. So
Crow tries to fulfill his duty, sets out to kill every important. Why would I want to get him there to try?
So I'll just do 1, 14, 30, 2, whatever.
People do seem NPC we end up killing. This island has some problems. Instead, we just set off and people do seem to try to kill each other. There is a religious aspect to these events where you were apparently once banished by the Light of feedback after thing. In fact, I don't even know what it is.
Because some people, in fact, would be like, you gave me life again. All right, thank you. I'll do exactly what you say. And other people would be like, you've pissed me off. Whatever.
Maybe we are stuck in the lands between, but other people do seem to travel between here and other places, like the Badlands and the Lands of Reeds. So wouldn't a more sensible motivation be to look for a way off this rather dangerous island? Instead, we just set off immediately to kill everyone. This isn't completely insane, because killing people does make you stronger, but it's still very psychopathic.
You could say that about all of them, including attacking in Dark Souls 1, that very first hollow that teaches you how to fight. It's psychopathic. You get out of a jail cell where people have seen you and you start beating up people. This is why I hate the argument that he has in this section of the video, because it all can be explained the exact same way. So we put away our disbelief and we do whatever. In fact, this is the only time you can casually kill animals, and they give you loot that you can use to craft and actually use their bones, which in a way could be either darker or more humane than other ones. It's more of a survival of the fittest. You're here now, do whatever you want, become the Elden Lord, or survive. The other games kind of force you to, anyway, it's stupid.
Imagine if you woke up on a strange island one day. Maybe your plane crashed, and you find this island has some problems. There's even a war going on. Would you then jump straight into action to kill everyone and try to become the new island ruler? Because I know I wouldn't, so why does my character?
Or he's just ignoring that fiction just asks you to take it with a grain of salt. Because are you saying in Dark Souls 1, you get free from your cage and you're like, I'm going to do this guy's wish to become this. You might say, you know what? Let's frame his exact argument for the opening of Dark Souls 1. I'll do that. I'm doing a stream. Why not? No commentary. Full game. Wow, this guy was going crazy. Oh, did it just start off in the game? Yeah, well, that's just really cool visuals. Trying to get to the point, though. Yeah, yep, character was already made, which I appreciate. Is this still MK Fire? No, it's some other guy. I guess some people could argue, yeah, this guy's even doing a little roleplay thing going on. No, it's psychopathic just because you read a sign on the ground to go and start beating people up. Isn't that psychopathic? You see a demon in a cage, and you feel fear. You beat up this other guy who's literally just feeling nothing but clear terror in his heart and soul. It's like, you see what I mean? People make biases for games that they really like, and I think that's fine. I just think it's a poor argument for this particular reviewer. That's why Joseph Anderson didn't bring this up. He didn't ask what's going on, because most of them are like, what's going on? You're looking around, you do this. Playing Asylum Demon. Now, some could argue you'd never leave the jail if you didn't have to kill anyone. The only person you learn you have to end up killing is the Asylum Demon to get out, but that one even has a health bar if we're going to go off lore reasons, and the doors are locked. So you have no other choice because it's trying to kill you. after that, when you get out of there, most things are trying to kill you if you try to go anywhere. Same thing with Elden Ring. So I'll leave it at that. But my point is, it's just not a valid argument. It's crazy how much, like I said, some of the things that's why only reason I give it a dislike. So much falls off.
Character. Every important NPC we end up killing has done nothing to us. Some of them don't seem very nice. For one of them, it seems to be a mercy kill, but most of the time we just travel around looking for people to kill and steal power from. Now, in fairness, they do attack us, but we're the one trespassing into their domain and killing all their men, so we're starting it.
Once again, could literally be the same thing for any Souls game. I don't get your point. In fact, for a game that's not really well liked, Dark Souls 2 has the most excuse because the people there are like, oh, we support you. Go out and live the world. Go do something with your lives. Ha ha.
The only reason we eventually get for all this is to repair the Elden Ring, but why would we want to do this? I mean, maybe repairing the Elden Ring
I won't skip ahead. I'm just going to let it play out.
is a good thing, but maybe it's not, and no one explains to us why it would be. Not all rings are good. Just ask Celebrimbor. Now, if it sounds like I'm pedantically picking at unimportant details, then you are at least wrong about the last part. Because pedantic I might be, but these are not unimportant details, they are at the centre of the game's story. From Software have always withheld information and obscure details, but they've never tried to withhold and obscure everything, and Elden Ring is so committed to making everything as vague and confusing as possible that in the process it completely abandons the aspects that made previous games' narratives work, like having a strong central theme, or using obvious and easy to understand imagery and symbolism, or giving the player motivation for their journey, or ensuring the vagueness fits.
We already went over it, but I already talked about how it's psychopathic to do with some of the stuff you're doing in that game as well. If we're going to go off that language.
Realistically with the setting. For example, in Dark Souls, there is a clear theme of struggle and finding your own way forward in spite of this, as well as death and facing an inevitable end. The imagery and symbolism involve a dichotomy between light and dark, as well as the fading of a flame, and people going hollow, and all of these are easy to understand, even without playing the game, in a way that Elden Rings and Greater Wills are not. The setting is one where most humans have already went hollow, so very few people are even left to explain things to the player, and when you do find someone who knows more than you, they do explain exactly what you should do, how you should do it, and why this is so important. Frampt isn't necessarily telling you the truth, but that's because he has his own motivations and is giving the player this information to try to manipulate them. Elden Ring also has a character who knows a great deal of information that is trying to persuade the player to do their bidding, and this character even travels with you for most of the game. And yet, Melina never explains why you should help her, despite this being something that's obviously in her best interest. I mean, it's not surprising so few players choose one of Melina's endings, as she never bothers to give a single reason why you should.
And if anything, I think that's more respectful than anything. I think it makes more sense if you just like, you can help me if you'd like, but if you don't want to, that's fine. I think that's more humane than being like, here's my reason I need you to help me. Because you could equally ask, why would I care about that? Like I said, he's just setting up an argument that I just think falls flat because all it's doing is assisting something that he's trying to put off as a message. And I just don't think that's... I don't think this part... I just don't think it's well written. Like, I think he clearly had some sort of biases about what he was thinking about. And I think other parts of the video have hints of truth in it. Like, I think a lot of the gameplay stuff, as much as I disagree with it, like, I will not deny that seeing it based on titles, the accessible gameplay... Yeah, I'd argue that it's not as simple as that. The revolutionary open world. I also will agree, yeah, it's not that different from other open worlds. But if you go too deep on a topic, then you just start to disagree so much. It's Anyway, I'll continue that.
Clearly, this is not out of a lack of commitment to her cause, as she is quite willing to burn herself alive, but I guess telling the player why they should seek the Elden Throne is just too far. I mean, self-immolation is one thing, but a conversation with someone, yuck. Now, there is a lot of lore.
Some could say maybe she just wants to guarantee what she can do, and she just wanted to get to her mission no matter what. Like I said, but like I'm not gonna defend it because it's the kind of thing that's like I can keep going. Like it's not everything he's saying. I could equally say something about it because I don't think his arguments are fair.
In Elden Ring, and I'm not.
For example, I don't know too much about Godwyn the Golden, which is something I do want to eventually figure out. But I do know about the Black Knight. I have to watch these cutscenes again. I have to remember that. Maybe I'll do like a run based off what I see in the cutscenes to see if like maybe I can have like a full immersion run.
Trying to deny that it can be interesting in its own right. In fact, I don't think there has ever been so much lore in any of these games before, but at the same time, I also don't think there has ever been so little reason to care about it.
I think it's always been no reason to care. It's just whatever you want to pick and choose, my guy. And that's one of my things I'm going to talk about in the video. It's right at the end. I'm like, look, ignore these people's opinions. Because literally I could offer Dark Souls has no valid reason. The world is terrible. You could just leave it or not. Why would you do that? It's just, it's whatever.
For some people, discovering the lore and trying to piece it together is like a game in itself, and some content creators can produce incredible things out of this, but I still believe that the player's experience within the game itself is the most important part, and that the only reason so many people even looked deeper into the lore of past games was because they felt their actions within the game had meant something. As for the lore...
Oh, once again, bring up Dark Souls 3. I think he was off the heat of his Dark Souls 1 video. Didn't consider Dark Souls 3. Because that was the last one that came out, and that game explicitly says most of your choices don't matter. And the other one's usurping it, which is still not your choice. It's just possession, essentially. In fact, I think your choice in this is, it's just about, if you do want to get to the end, what do you want to do when you get there?
Or, I think some of it deserves credit for being creative and interesting, but it also seems like there is a huge amount of unoriginality. For example, the main revelation in Elden Ring is that the ruling organization of this land, the Golden Order, has a dark secret, which is that it's being controlled by a secret power, the Greater Will. But this is pretty much the exact same as Demon Souls, and Dark Souls, and Bloodborne, and Sekiro.
Sounds like it's thematic, and something From Software continues to do. I don't think that this game was intending to stray from the path in that department. Was anyone picking up Elden Ring expecting this game to be functionally different in its storytelling specifically? Gameplay was mostly what they showed off, then the lore thing, and many people feel it's just, that's what I'm saying. This video, I would say, if you agree with the takes I'm giving, give it a dislike. Because it's like, dog, you just do so much wrong here. And that's why I hope when I do my video, I hope my arguments are well-rounded enough that it's harder to crack as easily as this one.
I don't think the corrupt church is a bad trope, but I do think it's an overused trope, particularly by From Software, who seem to operate as if it's a narrative requirement. However, this twist doesn't work quite so well when we see it in every single game. Likewise, we are once more in a dying world, where the history suggests repeating cycles, where there used to be an age of dragons before humans.
If anything, I would say that this story is the most religiously important, because the other worlds were dying, this one isn't dying, it's just in peril. Like, things aren't well. So if anything, I think Faith makes the most sense in this environment than the other games, because it's like, the other worlds are destroyed, what are you praying for? But I think that's also why Covenants, I think, make a lot of sense in the Souls games, and would have made so much sense here, like the Black Knives and like all of that, and like I think it would have made so much more sense. And that is my number one pet peeve with Elden Ring, is that there's no Covenants. I think it made the most sense for it.
Came along, where the current age is being
or a Covenant equivalent
prolonged, leading to stagnation, where death has again went wrong, leading to no one staying dead, and where there is manipulation of unknowable outer gods. Again, not necessarily bad ideas, but certainly not new ideas either. Still, now that we have reached the topic of lore, I think it's about time the entire Souls community faces up to a hard truth, which is that telling your story through item descriptions is not good storytelling. And if you disagree
which is funny, because he says, like, this was something that...
agree with me saying that, perhaps you might believe the man who wrote them all, Hidetaka Miyazaki, who said on a Japanese podcast after Dark Souls released that the text is so small that he can't write anything decent and that he kind of gave up with them, saying this wouldn't do for a big title or serious game, but that it was good enough for them. Also, the reason he decided to write them himself, as opposed to hiring professional writers, was because he was happy to sacrifice quality to allow the game to be developed quicker, and so that he could keep updating them as the game evolved during development. In the end, this turned out well. Maybe Miyazaki was a better writer than he gave himself credit for, and maybe having a single writer allowed for the end result to be more cohesive. Still, I also think this method worked because it just so happened to be a perfect fit for the game. One of the greatest strengths of Dark Souls' story was its minimalism, and putting important lore on item descriptions worked well to complement this precisely because many players wouldn't feel the need to read them all. So in Dark Souls, story never got in the way, and the game's atmosphere, emotion, and themes were thus given greater emphasis, all while the lack of direct storytelling was, in a way, able to become a part of the story. Still, none of this means that telling your game's story through item descriptions is itself a good method. The act of reading item descriptions can often be boring, and the questions of who wrote these and how are we managing to read them are simply never addressed.
Because they don't need... Like I said, it's like I said, I just don't think this man is... Either he overhyped Elden Ring for himself. That's all I can get, because what are some of these complaints? Why does this game work like a video game? is all I'm hearing. What is this, dog? Are you crazy? No one cares how you can read them because it's fiction.
Some games avoid this by creating in-universe books you can read, where their content reflects the knowledge and biases of the author to allow the developers to give players
Cool, but in what From Software game did they start doing it this way? And then we can come back to those. And in fact, there's even the pieces of paper sold by the merchants for pieces of information that they are selling you. There's just a bit of information that you just internalize through game method. Also, I don't think anyone's immersion's breaking because of it.
incomplete
I guess yours, but I'm perfectly fine to let that go.
information in a realistic way. And this is honestly a similar but superior method. Still, more importantly, just because Elden Ring tells its story through item descriptions does not mean its story is good, and just because this worked in the past is not proof it will always work in the future.
And also, how about we just argue it never worked? It was just okay in a shorter game. You think maybe his argument is a game of this scope, there should have been more effort in the description department. Sure, okay, or in the development of the story department. Okay, we can agree on that, but you should say that instead because none of this is...
The only way to understand even basic parts of the story, like what are our characters' motivations, is to read every item description.
Also, like I said, just become Elden Lord. Because why do you want to like light the fire? Why don't you just not do it? And you kill so much to get there. What's your point?
I think the story has failed somewhere. In Dark Souls, item descriptions worked as they fit with the rest of the game, while allowing those who wanted to dig deeper an opportunity to do so. But Dark Souls wasn't reliant on its item descriptions. Item descriptions didn't exist to create an interest in the story, they existed to reward your interest in the story.
No, I can safely say I never knew what was going on. And that I didn't even use the item descriptions, I just didn't know. And most people didn't.
And the vagueness of these item descriptions worked well with the game's themes of needing to struggle and find meaning for yourself. A similar argument can be made for Bloodborne, in how a key theme of that game was this impossible search for knowledge in the face of unknowable horror that both the player and the world's other inhabitants experience. Basically,
Grant us eyes, grant us eyes. Plant eyes on our brains to cleanse our beastly idiocy.
so in Dark Souls and Bloodborne, being confused about the story is a part of the story. Meanwhile, in Demon Souls and Sekiro, the storytelling is not this vague. In fact, it's not even close. Demon Souls and Sekiro don't spoon-feed the player all information, but they do feature moments of exposition, as well as certain characters speaking plainly to the player about important events and what they mean. So Dark Souls and Bloodborne are vague for a reason, and Demon Souls and Sekiro are not this.
I think it would have been unrealistic to have NPCs explain the story to your character. I don't think it would make any sense. I think you'd have to ask, why are these people giving me this information? What makes it special? In Sekiro and Demon Souls, sure, that makes sense. In Dark Souls, in that series, I think it makes sense that they didn't as well. Because why would they talk to you about it? They could tell you about their own personal stories, as people like Blade do, as people like Ronnie do, as people that you happen to meet along the way do, as Melina does. Can't remember. Different characters.
This vague. So why is Elden Ring? I think this is the most cryptic From Software have ever been, but I never found a reason to suggest why this is, and I don't think it works in the story's favour. It's okay to leave players confused, but that shouldn't be the only thing they're left feeling. Anyone can make something that's confusing. It's not a sign that something's deep. Being confusing is the easiest thing in the world. And speaking about confusing, it's time we return to both of the problems raised in the previous section to discuss the side quests. These games have never done much to help players find these unofficial side quests, but in previous games, players were at least likely to travel through these worlds in a predictable order, and so most players were able to find most NPCs and see many of their interactions. It has always been difficult to see everything. Secrets have always been allowed to be secret. But there were plenty of chain NPC interactions most players would see, such as finding Solaire in Lost Izalith, or seeing the confrontation between Pate and Crichton. Elden Ring has more of these side quests than ever before, and I explored the game thoroughly.
And this will be another aspect that I think that, yeah, From Software should have done better on having some way to track it. So, yeah.
In previous games, this would mean I was able to see much of this NPC content, but in Elden Ring, I saw almost none, because so many questlines have such specific requirements, and rely on you going to different places at different times in a way that almost no one would do without following a quest guide. Some of these require you to backtrack to places you've already been, but there's no way to know you should do this, and you can't expect players to regularly backtrack to past locations just to check if an NPC has turned up. Other quests might involve the player being told to do something, which they won't be able to do until many hours later, making it hard to remember the quest even exists. Others need you to exhaust all dialogue or reload areas to trigger an update. And then there's Blade, attacking you on sight unless you've bought a specific gesture from a specific merchant who you probably won't find until later, which easily ends both his and Rani's quest before they even begin.
Which I even know this happens, by the way. I've never fought Blade. Does he fight you? Why does Blade fight you? No, I thought about that more. I don't think he does. You usually hear, oh. Why would he fight you? Does he fight you no matter what? Oh, he can be an NPC summon, apparently. That's pretty hype. No, I think he did something wrong or the game bugged out, because I just don't see why he'd fight you. Yeah, they don't address it. Yeah, I don't know why he fought him. That was just a random thing that he ended up having happen to him.
If players missed some quests because some were complicated, that would be fine. But if players miss all quests because all are complicated, then it's not fine. Much of this is the result of the open world that prevents From Software from being able to accurately predict the player's path. But they should have been able to predict this problem and implement this content better. Mostly though, this just feels like another example of
And this is another one of those moments where I'm like, yeah, I can agree with that point, for sure.
how these games have come to be designed.
At least if From Software wants people to see them all the way through. Maybe they don't. Maybe they want you to... and they... Nah, no, they do too much with this.
More and more for players following a wiki or guide, rather than anyone playing the game naturally. After all, it doesn't matter how complicated a side quest is, if players have a guide to tell them what to do. And I assume that is what many players resort to. I mean, you only need to look at the game's achievement statistics to see that something isn't right here. The Age of Stars achievement that is linked to the game's secret ending, something which has so many different requirements that it feels almost
Meet Rani. Meet her in the rice. This may require... have her greatly serve her. Talk to them. Find him in Shiofa River, which that's not necessary at all. You still need Sylvis's thing. You just gotta defeat Radahn. Go into Nagron. Collect a Finger Slayer blade. Give it to Rani, which you'd... Now, that's one of the things, but maybe it says it on the item. Collect the Carrion statue. I don't think you even have to do Carrion Study Hall. I think you could just give it to her. Yeah, no, you could just go to the other thing and then go to... But I guess how would you figure that out? I don't know, maybe you should... Oh, no, I think you just notice that Rena's Rise is open. You'd have to look there. You'd get Rani, which you'd just use an item to get, so you'd feel like it. You defeat a guy, which you probably will anyway. Travel along the river, reach Noxtella, get the key. Okay, this is where... But once again, I think... Does it say on the Dark Moon Ring description? God dang, it does not have the description. Oh, wait. Let's see. Yeah, one thing I'll give is that once you get the ring, you don't know what you're doing. And then, okay, but I get what he means. He's saying that. But no, here's the thing. With the ring, travel back to the Lake of Rot, continuing the Grand Cloister. Oh, no, the discarded palace key. Hold on, because that... let me read what that one says. Discarded. And the only reason I'm not writing notes about this one is because I'm just like, I don't really have too much. Like, I'm not gonna talk about this too much in the video because it's not a response to him. Let's see. Key is guarded by Lunar Princess Rani along with her very flesh. Opens a treasure chest passed down from Carrion princesses. It is said to be found in the Grand Library of Raya Lucaria, which would get you the ring. And then you would travel back probably to where you were at. Or you either do it in either order. You'd go to it, go to Noxtella, explore it. And then you'd go to the end, find Estelle. And then, if you already have that stuff, you could just keep moving. And then the Dark Moon Ring at the end might be difficult. But this isn't that hard at all. This is also another thing of misphrasing the problem.
Impossible to achieve without a guide, has been achieved by more players than all four.
Because it's actually not that hard. Also, the whole thing about the Elden Lord achievement. In fact, what are my achievements? Because I also did Age of Stars first. But also, I think for most people, they just got the achievement they want and then just stopped playing, which I think would be fine and make sense. Yeah, let me look at the stats now. Yeah, let me look global. Age of Stars, okay, about the same. But let me see the differences. Oh no, it's pretty hardline the same thing. How many more people have been in Millennia since then? Since when he posted this video? 3%. Let's go 3%. You guys are doing good. Yeah.
Of the normal endings combined. This doesn't just
I think a better example would be like you got all the 15% of everyone who's played the game got all the legendary talismans. That's I think a better argument. It's like really?
tell us that the majority of players used the guide to achieve the secret ending. It tells us that the majority of players did this on their first playthrough, as that's the only way this achievement could be more common than the others. This is a strange revelation to me. It is understandable that players might want what they feel is the best ending, but I can't help but wonder that if you have to spoil the ending of the game in order to get it, is it still the best ending?
I could bring up Super Eye Patch Wolf's video on spoilers, but I won't. I'll just leave it at that. Essentially, just does it always spoil it? And the answer is, in my opinion, depending on who you're talking to. For me specifically, no, because I didn't look up what the ending would mean. Also, it's not really a secret ending. It's just an ending. I would in fact say the other ones are far more secret, because I would say the other quests are probably more elaborate.
Overall, though, I think this is just the same thing that's happened with the difficult.
Find her at waypoint, return to her. See, the thing that was difficult, yeah, return to her, exist dialogue, go to Red Vein Throne Room. Finding the primeval sorcerers took way more time, I think, but it's not, and that's not even an ending.
Difficulty, where if you make something too hard, players will just find a way to balance it themselves, even if doing so has some negative consequences on the story. I don't want to repeat points I made earlier, so I'd like to provide a counterexample instead, to try
And this is the part of the video I really like, so let's just get into it.
provoking players to think for themselves and experience a sense of awe and wonder at the sights they see and the places they travel to. This was perhaps the main inspiration for Miyazaki's original decision to be so vague in his storytelling, and this, at least, does still work in Elden Ring. So, my highlight of Elden Ring's story, and one of my favourite moments with this game, came at the end of a long stretch of exploration. It started with a map marker. Yes, Elden Ring does have map markers, sometimes. This one was added in a later patch to signpost a new entrance to the underground that's opened after defeating Radahn.
Which, thank God for that, by the way, because I had to Google it, because I had no idea where Blade was talking about.
The underground already feels like this entirely new world, hidden away beneath the main one, but when exploring this new area, I was lucky enough to spot a message and item that pointed me towards a hard-to-find hidden path, which brought me to another new area that you can jump down to, the Aqueduct. This is actually the only entrance to this zone, but I didn't know that, and jumping down onto this thin support beam made me feel like I was entering somewhere I wasn't meant to be. Like I was trespassing and going outside the intended game zone. At the end of this area, I found a coffin, which turned out to be a lift, that brought me to another new zone, Deep Root Depths. And then, after some more exploration, I reached the end of this zone. Now, I want you to try to imagine you're me. You entered a hidden underground zone, only to find an even more hidden zone, which took you to another hidden zone, and at this point, you have no idea where you are, or what you'll find, or how this place can be so big. You feel like you've stumbled into an entirely new part of this world that players were never meant to see, a place of mystery and secrets. And at the very end of this journey, you find this. A decaying swamp full of roots and flies with some unknown monstrosity at its centre. You notice a giant fishtail first, and then an oddly angled arm, and something else you can't quite see in the middle, which you eventually realise as you get closer, is a face. Misshapen, oddly angled, sunken and rotting, but a face nevertheless. I know where this is going, you think to yourself. Things like this exist in these games to come alive and attack you. This is a game about boss fights after all. But that's not quite what happens. Instead, at the foot of this disgusting abomination is a woman. A woman you know.
Ah, there you are. I knew you would come.
Well, that makes one of us, because of all the things I expected to find here in the darkest depths of this world, Fia was not one of them. Fia is the deathbed companion mentioned in the game's opening, and I met her in the Round Table Hold, where she once asked to hold me. She said I felt very warm and offered to hold me as often as I needed. By the way, she actually permanently decreases your max health by 5% when she does this. What the hell, Fia? I didn't realize I was sharing my vigor quite so literally. I could have done with those hit points against Malenia. Anyway, I didn't know this at the time, and I liked Fia. She seemed nice. And here she was, in this place of death and decay, perched beneath this hideous monster, where she asks you this.
What is it you intend? To deny us and our ways, like the dogmatic brutes of the Golden Order?
And I thought about this. All signs here point to this being bad. This is not a pleasant place. There is a constant sound of flies buzzing in your ears while you talk, and it feels like the game is trying to tell you not to side with this person. But what the fuck do I know about Fia or the Golden Order or what's right and wrong in this land? How could I ever confidently deny her her ways? I don't know anything about them, which meant there was only one option left.
You are an odd one. I am the guardian of those who live in death. They call me a foul and rotten witch. Yet you still wish to be held by me?
And so she held me and whispered secrets in my ears, and my God, did they feel secret. In this moment, I felt like I'd wandered out of the game's intended playable area into somewhere completely new, somewhere I was never meant to be, only to find a person I was never meant to find, who is now telling me secrets I was never meant to hear. In this moment, I felt like I was the only person in the world to have ever come here and knelt in this place of decay to listen to Fia's whispers. And I hope that if you maybe don't play these games like me and don't want to, that you can at least understand how there is a magic to not knowing where you're going and what you'll find, and instead just embracing the imperfections of wandering this world on your own, uncovering the secrets you can find, grasping at the little you do understand while letting your mind fill in the rest. I never did find the item Fia was looking for, and so I wasn't able to progress her questline further. But if I had found it, I would have given it to her. And if I did get a choice at the end of this game, I would have chosen Fia. Because fuck the lands between, I know nothing about this place, and fuck these people, they mean nothing to me. But a hug is something I can understand, and compared to everything else out there, a hug seems as good a reason as any to take the Elden Throne.
Here's the thing. That's a perfectly fine answer, Never. That's a perfectly fine answer. When the choice to continue the flame or not continue the flame in Dark Souls 3, it could be one character's decision. Maybe talking to Cirrus of the Sunless Realms, you could be like, I'll keep it going for her. It could be your little thief knight friend who gets took out and you're like, I want this place to end. It's a legitimate reason, Never. That's not a complaint. I get a lot of what you're saying, but that's how you develop character motivation. And you've now learned what, for most people, is what they do. I won't say most, myself, specifically. But also, I'd have to imagine a decent audience. But I don't know if his audience is more on the side of people that find the lore or me. I'd like to think me, because I'd like to believe that negative is what's more true.
And if anyone wants to call me a simp for this, then I will at least need to see some proof that you didn't pick Rani's ending, because I refuse to be talked down to by anyone that looked up all the endings and then just chose the one where they get to be Rani's maiden.
I think that's a bad response, but hey, we'll leave it alone.
Anyway, It is my sincere hope that I will come to regret this section of the video in the months and years to come. I hope that time will prove me wrong, but there is more to this story, and that the reason Elden Ring seems to have so little to say is because it is yet to reveal its full hand. That Elden Ring's narrative is perhaps not meant to be considered as a standalone tale, but as the introduction to a new, interesting world that will be built upon by future DLC and the inevitable sequel. I hope I am wrong. But as it stands, it seems like Elden Ring uses vagueness not to serve its story, but as a mask to hide behind, to obscure its
And, hey, it is what it is.
other problems, and people just accept this because vagueness is what From Software fans are used to, so how could it be bad? Still,
My response is vagueness is what From Software fans are used to. I don't see the motivation to change that now. I don't think it's a laziness thing. I think they were just worrying about other aspects. But in a follow-up where they're using the same engine, probably could do that.
from where I'm standing, the Emperor doesn't appear to be wearing any clothes, and I think most people are just afraid to say so. And, to be honest, that sounds like a good segue for the conclusion, so let's bring this to an end. I think Elden Ring is a good game. I think From Software are the best developer in the industry right now. I don't begrudge Elden Ring its Metacritic score or sales, and frankly, I think it deserves them just as much as most other things out there. I understand how so many people can enjoy their time with a game like this, and I still look forward to whatever games From Software will make in the future. But I cannot deny that the main emotion I walked away from this game with was disappointment. Disappointment that it's a good game which could have been so much more. Disappointment that the best developer in the industry had taken so few risks and forgotten so much of what once made their game special. Disappointment
So few risks. That's just insulting and incorrect.
that the lessons From Software are likely to learn from this are the wrong ones. And disappointment that the experiences other people seem to have had are so vastly different to mine, making me feel like my playstyle is no longer valid, despite the fact it was that same playstyle but still led to many of the best memories I did have with this game. People worry about games going open world because it leads to them diluting their core appeal, and that seems to be what happened with Elden Ring. People praise
But also, just to repeat one more fucking time, Elden Ring is not Dark Souls 4. Stop trying to say it is. Because you're essentially saying for fans it got watered down. It didn't. It's actually truly not so different in their cores to what Dark Souls did. It's just one of them did it in a way you like more. I truly don't think they're different enough. There are faults that are more obvious because they took a much more huge ambition in making it open world. And I don't think anyone's really mastered open world yet. I think people are still working that out. But I just think you're wrong, buddy.
Elden Ring for its more accessible difficulty, and yet its higher difficulty has excluded more playstyles than ever before. And people
And once again, that's only in the last section of the game, which for most people is like 80 hours if they even get to the end and try to finish it. So I think that's okay to be a little bit like, try something else from what you've been doing for most of this game.
are unwilling to criticize Elden Ring's story due to how impenetrable it is and the assumption that it must be good because it's From Software, even if that isn't actually true.
Which, I don't even know who's really saying that, but maybe in his circles.
Still, none of these are what I find most disappointing. In this post-Elden Ring world, I can't help but think about the game which shot From Software into stardom. In a time where every game developer was trying to make their games more accessible and more broadly appealing while always holding the player's hand and explaining everything, Dark Souls stood alone as a complete rejection of this. It was a game about doing things for yourself, finding where to go, making sense of an unclear story, overcoming challenging bosses, and finding your own reason to keep going.
All of which still applies to Elden Ring by a very long shot, my friend.
That was what Dark Souls was about, and it incorporated this into its mechanics, its setting, and its narrative.
The only thing it didn't do is incorporate it as deeply in some of the things he said there.
And people loved it. For many, it was one of the best gaming experiences they ever had, and its success created the foundation that would one day make Elden Ring possible. And yet, here we are, 11 years later, and From Software and their fanbase have turned this game into the exact opposite.
Which is not true.
Elden Ring punishes players for trying to do things themselves, and now everyone just
Once again, still the end game.
copies the same few meta builds while using a wiki to tell them how to do the side quests, and to check which ending they want, and then hopping over to YouTube to get someone else to tell them what they're meant to think about the story.
But, I'll talk about it in my video. This was always me. I've never known what's going on, and I just let other people's examination be an interpretation of that story. Because I literally have nothing in most cases. It was just, that guy looks cool. Maybe I should have been more curious, but I didn't know what to think. I got into these games when I was at a very sad time, and I just loved the gameplay loop, and I loved how everything kind of functioned and worked. So, yeah, maybe my bad for that, but I just think you're wrong for assuming it started here and wasn't always a part of what people would do. VaatiVidya has been making these videos for a very long time. And for very valid reason.
Dark Souls was a game about thinking for yourself and finding your own way, so I can't help but wonder, what the fuck happened?
And the answer is nothing, my friend. Nothing has happened. You just don't like Elden Ring, and that's perfectly fine.
And what is Elden Ring about? Well, to me, the main theme of the story seems to be about questioning and overcoming authority to try to create a future of your own. After all, the Golden Order is based on lies. The Outer Gods are manipulating this world and its people. Your journey tasks you with defeating those with competing visions, and the final boss we slay is the embodiment of the greater will itself, which then allows us a chance to define our own future as Elden Lord. So, I do have to admit, I find it ironic that in a game about escaping the influence of exterior powers and following your own path, that the way people actually play this game and what the developers seem to encourage is the exact opposite. A lot of people have said Elden Ring is like Dark Souls. It's not, but I wish it was.
And I'm glad it isn't, because I would have been bored if they just did the same thing again. And that's where I'll end the stream, because that's where he ends the video, and I essentially got my notes a while ago. I just wanted to react to the last portion. I'll probably link this